There we go.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Chester County Marketing On-Air Show, a bi-weekly internet show of 10 to 20 minutes in length, hosted by myself, Jeff Tincher, digital marketing consultant and the owner of 610 Digital, and my co-host, Carla Wilson, the owner of Wilson Media Services. Unfortunately, Carla can't be here with us today, so we have a special guest host sitting in with us, Coreen Tossona. So, Coreen, could you just introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Coreen Tossona. I'm a copywriter and marketing consultant. You can find me on Twitter at CTMarcom. I am the relative novice with WordPress, so I'm going to be the one asking the questions for the perspective of the newbie in the audience.
Great, great. So just a little bit about the group and about this Hangout. So each show we talk about, we do a bi-weekly show every Thursday, typically at 10 a.m., or we might even be focusing more on a lunchtime talk to get the lunch and learn go out there. We talk about digital marketing tips and topics and give tips, tricks, and other helpful advice to our viewers. We're based in Chester County, Pennsylvania, for those that might be watching from far off lands, right? So we get so many. But we do also host a monthly event and live in-person presentations where we educate our local business owners, freelancers, and marketing professionals in the area. So if you're within the Philadelphia area, please go over to www.chescomarketing.com where you can learn about the group. We don't have an annual enrollment fee or anything like that. We just do monthly events and such and presentations. So now it's gotten to the part where we introduce our special guest who's come on the show here. Her name is Christina Strommer, and she is going to be speaking to us today about WordPress and WordPress plugins. So hey, Christina, thank you for joining us, and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to join you. My name is Christina Strommer, and I'm a freelancer. I do web design and development, and this is my first Hangout, so I'm excited to join the conversation and provide some information regarding WordPress and for small businesses and as far as plugins. Thanks again, and we can move forward.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to start off, and so what is your experience with WordPress, and why is it such a good tool for a lot of small businesses or smaller sites to use such a thing as WordPress and values? So I know you were going to speak of that. So if you can give us some information on that, that'd be great.
Okay. WordPress, actually, my experience, I've been using it for several years, and at this point in time, I don't foresee myself using anything other than WordPress. I started out using WordPress.com and then moved over to WordPress.org. The difference being WordPress.com, you can create a free site. There's no programming involved. WordPress.org are the self-hosted sites where you have flexibility and control over the design of your site, and you can host it with any company you wish. I personally like the .com one for small organizations or nonprofits or whatever, because it's a way to make it yourself present online for little cost or no cost. I mean, you can pay extra money for premium features on WordPress.com, but I'm actually creating a WordPress.com site right now for an organization because they will not have the expertise to maintain a self-hosted WordPress site. Obviously, if you decide to have a business or your nonprofit organization build a WordPress site, you're going to have some more custom design, and you're going to need somebody that's knowledgeable and can help you maintain it going forward.
Okay, so with a question here, for those that may not know of WordPress and such, is there any cost differences between the .com and the .org? And you were saying sometimes it's best for maybe a smaller business to go out and use WordPress.com. I know some people think, can I still use a domain name with WordPress.com where they own it? So if you could just give us a little info on that as well, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, WordPress.com is free to set it up, and it is hosted on WordPress.com. You can use your own domain name with it. I believe it's, if I'm correct, about $15 to $20. It might be in that $18 range.
Yeah.
WordPress.com does have some premium features, like if you do want to delve into some custom design, or you need more space for your site, or you want to do video embeds, or you need more storage, you can pay a fee on WordPress.com. And you can also pay a fee for an ad-free site, because with WordPress.com, there will be ads on your site if you go with the free version. You know, I want to take a step back here because I'm thinking about this. I'm making an assumption here that everybody knows what WordPress is. And just in case you don't know, WordPress is a powerful blogging tool, and it's a content management system. So it gives clients a way to update and maintain their site once it's live and on the internet.
Yeah, I think what surprised me when I first started learning about WordPress was that so many major sites use WordPress. It's not always something you can see, you know, speaking to those novice users. Like, I'm pretty sure it was CNN and New York Times. There are a ton of websites that are on WordPress, and you just have no idea. It's, you know, something you see on the back end, not on the front end.
Yeah, and if I could also say too, Jeff, you were asking about like WordPress.org. The self-hosted site really, you know, if you have a big business, or even a medium-sized business, or you have a lot of content that you need to put out on the internet, you probably want to go with a designer or developer and have a WordPress site created for you, and you can customize it the way that you want it to look, and you can add different plugins and features, and I'll talk about them in a minute. But there's a lot of themes and out there for WordPress. Some people develop their own themes. Like I do both. I can use a theme. If a client wants a theme, it might be cheaper for them to go that route. Or you can create a theme from a number of what we call frameworks that are out there. But yeah, you would have to find your own web host with a WordPress self-hosted site. So that's the only thing. You will pay a web host a certain fee per month to put your site out on the internet.
Great. Great. So is there anything else that people should know about the WordPress, or we are ready to move on to, I guess, some of the some plugins that might be valuable to start with? And what's a good amount of plugins to use? Are there ones that are not good? Are there ones that people should use as a starter pack, if you will? Do you want to head down the plugin way now?
Yeah, you know what? Before I do that, let me just mention a few more quick things about WordPress. It is a large community, so there's abundant knowledge out on the internet, whether you're going on social media, or you're going to a local meetup, or you're going to a WordCamp, which is an event that they hold at, you know, throughout the world in different cities. WordPress is also open source. Coreen has her WordPress Philly shirt on. WordPress is also open source, which means that you can change your code and do with it what you like. And it also gives you the ability to have your users interact with your sites. You know, they can post comments on your articles and posts. They can also subscribe to your WordPress blog. And last but not least, it's very mobile friendly. So, and there's also a WordPress app that you could take with you if you need to manage your site while you're on the go.
Cool.
Yeah, I think along those lines of WordCamps and things like that, we should mention there are Meetup Groups too, for anyone who wants to learn more about WordPress from people who know. There's a Philadelphia WordPress group, and then there's the Philly Burbs WordPress group as well. You just go on meetup.com and look for them, and they meet pretty regularly, like once a month. And they are great groups. You can learn a lot.
Definitely. So, hey, I just want to take a break here and say, for those viewers that are online watching now, I finally got the Q&A panel to load up correctly here in this Hangout, so you can go, if you're watching on our events page or on the YouTube channel or where we will, there'll be a little yellow box that might pop up that says, hey, would you like to use or ask a question? So if you have any questions about WordPress or plugins, feel free to write us a question, and we'll get that off to have Christina, Coreen, or myself answer that for you. So now back to Christina here, who will continue on with our plugins section.
Okay. Plugins are basically when you have a WordPress self-hosted site, you will have a theme and you can add plugins to that theme. Some themes come with plugins already installed, but what a plugin does is it extends the functionality of your WordPress site without code. And there's only a few I want to touch on because there's thousands and thousands of plugins, but some of the important ones are there's a plugin that comes with WordPress called Akismet, and what it does, it basically monitors your site and blocks spam. So if you do have people commenting on your articles and posts, it will block the spam, and it's a great tool. You will want to check that spam folder, though, if you have a WordPress site, and make sure that no legitimate comments have been flagged as spam. That's the only downside to it, but it's definitely I think, a must-use plugin.
Definitely.
I want to talk a little bit about the backups. It's really important to back up your site. Backup, backup, backup. And I actually do this a couple ways. A lot of the web hosts out there provide premium WordPress hosting, and included in that premium WordPress hosting, you will have the ability, or they will include daily backups and one-click restores, which to me is just worth it, just to pay extra for premium WordPress, because you're not hanging on the phone with a web host that, for hours trying to get your files back if something goes wrong. So, but in addition to that, if you don't have that feature, you can use, there's a couple plugins. One is Wordpress, which starts at about $5 a site, and it's a daily backup. There's Backup Buddy, which is about $150 a year for unlimited sites. And then there's WordPress to Dropbox. And I actually use this one as well. So I have my host backing up my files, but I also have WordPress to Dropbox, which is automated, and it backs up all my core WordPress files. That includes the images and what we call the database files. The downside is that you have to restore that manually yourself, which I've done. So, it's not fun, but you get it done when you need to get it done.
Christina, what was the first one you mentioned? Did you say Voltbox?
Wordpress.
Voltpress. Okay. Thanks.
I don't use it. Like I said, my hosts at this point have it built in, so and I pretty much use the Dropbox and then what my hosts have built in as well.
Yeah, I've been using the Dropbox one for a couple clients just so I can see it come in, and it's great because I'll see that the backups are running because I'll be sitting working at the computer, and all of a sudden the Dropbox will pop up and says a backup's been made for you. So you can actually see the backups being made during that time, and it goes right into a special folder in Dropbox where, and I believe, can you say save so many or overwrite, and a lot of those things will say you can either back up the database, the actual theme files, and the plugins. And I typically don't, myself, I don't back up the theme as much as I do the plugins. I'd want to back up the database, which contains all the content that that people take the time to write and all of that. Where the theme, if you needed to, you could go download it, or worst case comes, you refresh your site with a brand new theme. So I'm always about that.
It's interesting you should say that, because I have been working on a project this month to try and move 4 WordPress sites, and there are issues because we don't have, or the person that's hosting it now versus a new host, we don't have an exact copy of their production site. But like you said, Jeff, if you have the database, that's really critical. You can always get a newer version of the theme, or you know, and even the plugins. But the database is absolutely critical.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Couple other plugins I like. There's something called WP Total Cache and WP Super Cache, and what they are is basically improving the user experience. So it decreases the download time of your site. It also increases the time it takes pages, or I'm sorry, decreases the time that it takes pages to load. So those are really great plugins if you have a very large site, for instance. And I do have one site that has like 100 pages and like thousands of images, so it is running on that site.
Cool.
Um,
Are there any plugins out there that help with search engines?
oh, actually, that was the next one on my list, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Search engine optimization, SEO by Yoast. I think everybody I know uses it. Every WordPress
I
developer,
use it.
Coreen, yeah. Every
Yep,
every
I use
user,
it too.
designer, and developer that I think goes to our monthly Burbs WordPress meetup, I think uses it. You can, for each page and post, you can put in the title information, the meta information, descriptions. You can set up your XML sitemap. So SEO by Yoast is again something I think is a must-have on your website. I think it's, or WordPress site. In addition to that, I also have there's something called Jetpack. Again, I think most people have heard of Jetpack if they're a user or designer or developer of WordPress. The downside to Jetpack is it's a plugin and it's provided by WordPress, but you have to set up a WordPress.com site. So when you put Jetpack in your WordPress site, your self-hosted site, it will ask you for a WordPress.com username and password. But Jetpack is pretty neat because it does give you a lot of additional functionality that may not already exist in your theme. And that can include social media sharing, custom CSS, you know, galleries, forms, e-commerce, and the list goes on and on.
Christina, do you know why it asks to connect you to your .com site?
I do not.
That confused me. I mean, as soon as you mentioned it, I think I went back to my experience with my own website when that popped up, and I thought, why would I enter in my blog website because it's separate from my business website?
Right, right.
So when you do enter it in, what does that do? Does Jetpack show up in both places?
Well, I think I know what it's doing. Because Jetpack will give you the ability to get some like analytics as well. So
Yes.
it's storing those into your, how I believe it's doing, it's storing it into your WordPress.com user account is
Okay.
a lot of those stats. And also, since it's a, maybe because it's a WordPress tool or plugin, that it helps you maintain the ability to say, I am going to get these different modules inside of Jetpack upgraded. Because Christina, maybe you can talk about, it's not just like a normal plugin like the SEO, WordPress SEO by Yoast or Backup Buddy or the thousands of other plugins that are out there are usually do one thing, where Jetpack, it's like a plugin but then contains numerous other small, I guess, modules with inside of the plugin itself, right?
Right, right. And numerous. I think it's
It's
pushing 3 dozen, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh, wow.
2 dozen. It's a lot.
so. Coreen, were you going to say something?
No,
Oh, okay.
just nodding along.
Cool.
I think I just said wow to the number of, I didn't realize that how much was involved with Jetpack.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and it's interesting, since I do a lot more custom coding now, I'm relying less and less on plugins.
Yeah.
And which is good. I mean, it's better to have less plugins because it doesn't weigh down your site, because plugins will, you know, obviously it could cause issue with page loads and things like that. But like I said, I don't use a lot of plugins anymore. I do use Akismet. I use the WP Total Cache. I use SEO by Yoast. Jetpack, I might, the stats, Jeff, that was a great point. It does give you statistics on your WordPress site. And then there is a contact form that is also included in Jetpack, which is easy, but again, I don't really use it that much, but it has some great features.
Do you use a different forms plugin?
Yeah, actually, that's the last topic I was going to cover. There are two other plugins regarding forms. One is Contact Form 7, which I've used several times, and the other is Gravity Forms. Gravity Forms is a little bit more advanced, and if you have a lot of traffic to your site and you need regular input from your users, Gravity Forms works really well. It also has some advanced features and can be integrated with like PayPal and MailChimp and surveys and things like that.
Okay.
Sometimes, like I found a client recently who just was like, the WordPress contact form is fine. They just want their name, their email, and a little bit of text. But other people might want a full-featured form.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that Contact Form 7 being a pretty decent form management tool.
Right.
You can also add on a CAPTCHA plugin that would then integrate right into Contact Form 7. And I'm also big into Google Analytics, so I want to know the events as well. So when someone is to fire off a contact form or click the submit button, in that, some of the way the forms actual fire inside of the web, it might just bring up a message at the bottom that says thanks for submitting, and it doesn't send them to a thank you page. But I need them to go to a thank you page or something to track within analytics to say that someone filled out the form when they came in from an ad or whatnot. So there's a little bit of an advanced feature in the bottom of that Contact Form 7 that will allow you to do that. So if you have any questions about that, or anybody, feel free to tweet us at Chesco Marketing, put it on our Facebook page or our Google Plus page. You can just search Chesco Marketing or Chesco Marketing Group, and find us on all those different social media networks. But I just wanted to go back to Christina and thank her again for today and see if she had anything else to add. If not, if you want to tell people how to reach you, that would be wonderful.
You know what, I had one question for
Yeah.
Christina, or for you. I know something that's talked about a lot at our Philly Burbs meetup is the, I don't know how we want to say it, the congruency of plugins and how using certain plugins, they don't always play nice with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So does that usually happen right away, or is it something later down the line where your website, something happens with your website and you've got to go back and uninstall plugins and then reinstall them and see which one's causing the problem?
Yeah, actually, while I was working on this multi-site migration, some of the plugins, I guess, probably weren't compatible with the newest version of WordPress and the newer version of the theme. So what happens, like, I actually had error messages when I loaded the site onto what we call a test environment or staging environment, and I actually had, like, errors on the site. So plugins there can be compatibility issues, plugins with each other, you're correct, or like I said, even with different versions of WordPress or PHP or a theme. So I had to go in and uninstall the ones that were giving me the problem and just reload the site. Unfortunately, there are no other options. Sometimes developers put plugins out there and then they let them go and they're not maintained, and then eventually they'll become deprecated and you can't use them.
Yeah, that's something to watch out for. I know some people have told me that it's best to look at the reviews and see what comments people are making about maintenance and see how many updates there have been so that you can tell if it's an involved developer or not.
Yeah, that's true. And I noticed, like, one of my sites I maintain, some of the plugins were put in like maybe a couple years ago, and the site is still functioning very, very well. Mm-hmm. But you go back and you visit these plugins plugin sites or the developer site, and they're like, they haven't touched it for 2 years. So there can be issues. You just have to kind of understand what you put on your site, and that's another reason why, if you get somebody who can develop your site, design it from a theme or whatever, it's good not to have too many plugins. Then you won't have as many issues.
Right. I mean, I remember. I'm sorry.
No, I just said good advice.
Oh, yeah. The thing about the plugins as well is, I don't believe on WordPress, like, well, one thing going to the WordPress and different things and hearing and understanding how I've run a couple sites and we've been talking here is, plugins are great, but you don't want to always overburden your website, your WordPress site with all of the plugins just because they can do that. It's going to start to really slow things down over time. Or, as Coreen brought up and Christina was answering, they could be incompatible, especially, like she said, if they are out there and old. So if you have one that's not been updated in a year or 2 years, geez, I mean, I would probably get rid of it because it could be a security breach. If it's not being updated, it's not being updated with the new security measures and things like that from a WordPress standpoint to keep your site super secure. So find the ones that are highly rated. As Coreen was saying, read the reviews as well and understand who the developers are. But another thing is if you do find compatibility issues between the different plugins, how do you know which ones to remove? And so I'm thinking this through right now. I'm like, they don't tell you in WordPress, like, oh, on last Friday I installed this plugin, and then today I installed this, and 3 weeks ago I installed this plugin. So how do you know which ones to remove in part of that time frame? So I'm thinking, if you're involved with a big site, you may want to write down in a calendar or on a Google spreadsheet or some kind of spreadsheet, I installed this plugin on this date, so you can actually start to backtrack up and find out what might have been the compatibility issues when it comes to those plugins. Because I'm telling you, I've had it happen, and you're like, I don't know which plugin caused it, and if it's the one that you really want to use, now you're in trouble because you can't use it. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I use a plugin, and I've only installed it on one very, very large site, but it does show me on the dashboard when you log into WordPress, it shows me when the plugins are updated. So I have a plugin that shows me when the plugins are updated. It works really, really well for this very, very large site. But yeah, I mean, luckily when I was doing this migration a few weeks ago, I actually got code errors that told me which plugin it was. Like it actually, yeah, which you don't always get, and otherwise you have to just kind of like Jeff said, maybe kind of keep track, and maybe I just installed this, so is this what broke my site?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we've covered a lot here today. So again, I appreciate you coming on, Christina, and talking about your knowledge of WordPress and giving us the ideas and plugins. And how can people reach out to you?
Oh, yeah. Basically, the easiest way to reach out to me is on Twitter. It's @JamminPSU. And a little bit behind that, because most people don't know, I came up with my social media handle. Out of the blue one day, I make jam. Yes, I do home canning. And I like music. And I went to Penn State, and there it was. And it kind of stuck.
Yeah. Good.
But
awesome.
You can reach me on Twitter.
Cool. Good. And then how about yourself there, Coreen?
I'm all over the web. You can reach me at ctmarcom is a really easy way to reach me. My website is the same. It's ct-mar.com. And I'm also on Google+. But you have to spell my name for that. So it's a little easier to find me on Twitter.
All right. Well, I appreciate both of you coming on. Again, I'm Jeff Tincher. My co-host, typical, is Carla Wilson. Couldn't be here with us today. Look for her to come back online in 2 weeks from today on October 16th, where we'll be joined by Liam Dempsey, where he'll be speaking Not really sure what he's speaking about. I think he's speaking about something to do with email and his a case study when it comes to that. But again, Carla and Liam will be on. I will be away that week and not being able to join in. And for those in the Chester County, PA area, we are going to have our in-person meeting on Wednesday, October 22nd, and I believe that's still going to be back at Pizzeria or Uno's Chicago Grill in Lionville, PA. Again, thank you so much for joining in and watching, and visit www.chescomarketing.com for event updates, tips, tricks, and more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.